For the record, my name is Lyle Rowland. I represent the 155th District. And I'd like to thank the committee and the chair for hearing my bill this morning. And I'd like to just start off by saying I think what you're about to hear today will probably make your hair fall out. But I see some of you may have already heard some of this bill. Thank you, Charlie. The bill I'm presenting today will give some security, I feel like, to the property owners throughout the state of Missouri and others on different topics. The UN Agenda 21 issue has surfaced and has caused a great deal of concern to a large number of our citizens throughout the state of Missouri. I found out this past interim that the state of Alabama had drafted a bill and had passed that bill in their legislature to protect the citizens of Alabama. And I saw that as a remedy maybe for some of the things that was coming up here in Missouri, and that is what my bill was patterned after. I'd like to just read maybe a couple of quotes here that really got me on top of this situation and wanting to do something to remedy it. Says, this is a quote from UN's Habitat 1 conference from 1976. It says, "Land cannot be treated as an ordinary asset, controlled by individuals and subject to the pressures and inefficiencies of the market. Private land ownership is also a principal instrument of accumulation and concentration of wealth. Therefore, contributes to social injustice. I fear for the property rights of our individuals in the state of Missouri that do own property." Another one was by a vice chair of the Wildlands Project. He said individual rights will have to take a back seat to the collective. This isn't a partisan issue. I was on the website when I was doing some research and found a website about Democrats against Agenda 21. So I feel like that most of our people are not in favor of what they're proposing. There's a lot of cover-up, I think, as to what the real reasons are behind it. And I have, as you saw, a large number of people that are here to testify today that will probably do a better job of explaining some of this than what I have. So with that, I'll take any questions and then we'll get into some of our testimony.
Representative Black,
To inquire,
proceed.
since the non-binding resolution by the United Nations was signed by President Bush the Senior, what kind of, because it's non-binding, that means it's not a law. So how could our rights be jeopardized if there's no enforcement jurisdiction to enforce it if it's non-binding? It's by your own volunteer in those emerging nations.
What I'm thinking it is, Representative Black, is that it's a proposal out here and that states, counties, local governments, municipalities can adopt any of those agenda items and make it a law with that as their underlying reasons.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Representative Crackey,
To inquire, Mr. Chair.
proceed.
Morning, Representative.
Good morning.
So this bill is basically out of fear of what might happen. Has anything happened now that we should be concerned about or have since 1992?
I think there's been several things that have probably happened across our country that have taken away personal property rights of people in the so-called good of the whole. And I think that a lot of those things might be able to be documented. I don't have that information in front of me this morning, but from what I've heard, that's, that there are cases like that.
Okay, I was the Government Affairs Director for the St. Louis Association of Realtors, and we are very much for private property rights, but I don't believe that anything in Missouri has happened that we should be fearful of. This is something that you're, I really don't know where you're coming from. I guess maybe I should wait to hear from the.
I think Representative, you will hear from some of the testimony, and they may be able to give you specific cases that they have researched on.
Okay, thank you, Representative. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Noor.
Commissioner to inquire. Refresh my memory about a thing at the lake. Some guy owned a huge plot of land, and they wanted to take it to do something with it, condominiums or resort or something. I hope someone's familiar with that case. Pardon? Well, it was an eminent domain thing, yes, but this is part of eminent domain that, in his case, in Branson area, this guy owned all this land on the side of a mountain down there, and they were going to take it. I wonder how that case turned out. I think that the state or whoever lost the case, and the man kept his land, but I'd like to know if anyone's familiar with that, because it sounds exactly like you're talking about.
I don't know exactly if we have anyone that knows. Apparently we do.
It was certainly a big deal.
I love to have great witnesses like these. And I don't know whether this is dealing. This doesn't deal exactly with that issue. It says here, nothing in Agenda 21 is legally binding on any government until a government at any level adopts a recommendation of Agenda 21 as a law or ordinance. And that goes back to what you were saying, Representative Black. I hope there'll be someone here. Representative, there was a big issue around the lake, and I imagine Representative Miller could even tell us more about this, that the Corps was wanting to come in and tear down like 4,000 and some houses because they infringed on a property line that the Corps was trying to enforce. And I'm maybe I'd like to refer, if I could, Mr. Chairman, to Representative Miller to answer Charlie's question.
Absolutely. Proceed.
Point of information.
Proceed.
Okay, what happened in Lake of the Ozarks area was that Federal Energy Regulatory Commission came in and said that the landowners around the Lake of the Ozarks, I think there was 1,500 structures.
4,000, 1,500 homes.
1,500 homes that they said, well, you're on Ameren UE land, you got to tear them down. And so, needless to say, that caused a lot of concern, and it's in the process of being fixed. It isn't fixed completely, and some things that have happened are not make some people unhappy, make me unhappy. But I believe we have a witness here today that will speak to more directly to that point and how it refers to this bill.
Anyone else? Representative Otto.
To inquire, sir.
Proceed.
Can you tell me then how this bill would affect that situation in Representative Miller's area, or has there been any movement toward adopting anything on Agenda 21? We had a great president sign this 21 years ago. Has anything transpired that would give us an indication that we're moving toward this agenda? I've always felt we sort of moved away from it.
I think, Representative, that when the individuals are up testifying, you'll hear some specific cases of that.
Thank you, sir.
Representative Anders. To inquire. Proceed.
Thank you. Representative, if I read your bill correctly, what you're advocating doing is putting restrictions on decisions by city councils, commissions, and those things. Are you, I think I know you well enough, you're not an advocate of more government, are you, in that instance? We don't like when the federal government tells us what to do as a state.
Yeah.
Are you okay with us telling city planning commissions and city councils and all of these things that you have listed, and I'm not quite sure how public and private partnerships come into this play, but we're okay with us telling them what they can and cannot do?
We're telling government entities that they shouldn't put more laws on us and restrict our rights. And I'm happy with that.
Okay. And can you give me some guidance on what non-governmental and intergovernmental organizations are that we should be concerned about, that these city councils and planning commissions and those things may be getting their advice from?
Again, it goes back to property rights, and one of the biggest ones that I know of, and it's a national, it's EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, that keeps expanding their rules and regulations to want to be able to have their say over our personal properties. And again, I think that in the witnesses that will be testifying here, you'll hear some of that.
Are you aware that there have been people who have gone to city councils and commissions and have protested against zoning laws because that's an infringement of my property rights? We in Independence have a zoning law that you can't park in the front yard, and if you don't have a driveway, you have to park on the street. Well, that's a zoning law, but there are people who, what I've read, have gone to city commissions and said zoning laws are, questionable. They're not. They don't want those used. I keep moving here because TJ keeps moving around.
Yeah, he's doing a good job of blocking. I appreciate that. Perfect.
So you don't advocate, you wouldn't advocate people protesting zoning laws like that. And one of the topics that comes up is sustainable development. Are you familiar with what that term means and what that is?
It's a very large definition to sustainable development, and it probably would depend on which side of that issue that you were on as to how you would define that.
Okay. The Agenda 21, I think, defined it as I read on the internet. It defines it as back in 1992, we need to start looking at how are we going to develop things in our planet, and how are we going to be developing things which are sustainable for future generations. Is that different than what you understand?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
It was my understanding that back in 1992, when this was put together there were a group of about 170 nations got together in Rio de Janeiro, I believe, and President George Bush Sr. was a part of that and signed on to this. But the idea was it's time for us to start looking at how are we going to develop and continue to develop as our population continues to explode. How are we going to deal with that and have something that's sustainable for future generations? And that seemed to me, when I looked last night, and I read about it till about midnight last night, that seemed to be the overlying premise of this Agenda 21, plan for the future.
I think that was the way it started, and I think that every president since Mr. Bush has signed on or has developed councils within their cabinet to deal with these issues. So this is a definition, it says, of sustainable development, a form of development that meets present-day needs without compromising the ability of future generations to satisfy their own requirements. It aims to improve individuals' living conditions whilst preserving their environment in the short, medium, and above all, long term. The objective of sustainable development is threefold: development that is economically efficient, socially fair, and environmentally sustainable.
Yes.
That was the definition, I think, of the organization called ICLEI.
And the definition that people are using for that is that sustainable development is the strategy that seeks to transform America from the land of the free to the land of the collective. It uses the environment as a bait and works to indoctrinate and prepare your children to live under a global collective. And I don't know, I read sustainable development, and that doesn't come through to me, I guess, but evidently it does to you.
I think there's some issues that probably have gotten started, and hopefully you'll find those out here in the testimony.
I guess my problem is telling local government, and I believe in local control, you can't do this or you can't do that. You can't get information from here. You can't use this. And when they do, people then are uprising and saying, oh, that's a part of Agenda 21. That's a bad thing. I mean, urban sprawl, we're trying to contain that. Well, that supposedly is now something that Agenda 21 has come up with.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, in the interest of time, we're going to have to move, and I'm going to allow one more question, and that's Representative Ross has asked for permission for an inquiry. And but I want to say to committee members, normally we'd be able to continue with this, but I think this discussion starting down a road that we can handle within our committee at a later time. So, no, go ahead.
Morning, gentlemen.
Morning.
So you've read through all of the Agenda 21.
That Agenda 21 book is pretty thick, and I've read a lot of people's interpretation of that book.
Absolutely. And, having read through that myself and listening to some of the comments here, not that the waters ever become muddy within this building, if you will, but, talking about property rights, and as a surveyor, I'm well aware of some of the issues that have occurred around the lake. And I think one of the distinctions we should look at here, between those issues versus what is attempting to be forced down our throats here, not only by, the administration which signed this agreement, but also here in recent times, some of the recent attempts to go along with the UN on some different proposals which would adversely affect us. I mainly wanted to say, I appreciate what you're doing here. I know a lot of my constituents do as well, and I look forward to supporting this bill. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Representative.